Install day for the pergola. This is one of my favorite elements on the project, so naturally I jumped on it. These are the kind of things that I like to get involved in personally. So, you know, we've got it drawn on the plans, a semicircle, and we kind of have to extrapolate a couple details from it and figure out what it is. The easiest way to actually build this thing was to lay it out on the subfloor. And actually, we had floor guys coming the next week, so we hurried to get this done Thursday, Friday of 1 week while we still had exposed subfloor in the kitchen. That was our biggest and flattest floor because we had flattened that. So essentially all we needed to do was to build a form. So, you know, you screw a pin in, you run a string, and then you have your radius marked on the ground. In terms of the material for what I'm going to call the main beam, we decided to use PVC. I believe this is clear, K-L-L or K-L-E-E-R. PVC, 3/4 inch sheets, 1x10. And we used it because it's naturally flexible, so it's much easier for us to work with. And also because we could have bent this up with veneers of wood or maybe Luan plywood or something like that. But I was a little bit nervous about the rain getting between the laminates over time and kind of spreading them. So we opted for PVC, and it's a double beam. So essentially built our radius to the inside radius, bent one in, clamped it, bent another one in, glued it, clamped it. We let those sit, put some spacer bars in, and then glued the other one after that. Let that sit for a couple days. We then placed a stretcher on the back because we wasn't really too sure how the PVC would react after we released it from the clamps. The stretcher kept it into place until today, which is, it's been about 8 weeks or so because this has been back burner. But once we took that off today, it didn't move at all. So actually is a really good product for this in the end. For the joists, what I'll call the joists, we use Douglas fir for these. You could use PVC for these, but it's very floppy. You'd also have to glue 2 sheets together to get the look of 2x stock. You'd have to round it all over like we did on the main beam. It would just be a lot of work, and I don't think it would be as good of a finish. You can use wood outside, little known fact. You don't have to make everything plastic. You just have to treat it properly. And so there are some steps we're going to take now to make sure that this will last a long time. I'll talk you through a bit of the install process from today. So basically after we had the beam glued up and some center lines marked, we were able to lay out these joists, cut all of our notches and things like that, and then using our geometry, measure and cut these joists, put the OG profile on it, round it over, sand it, et cetera, et cetera. And that brings us to today. We've got all the pieces here ready to go. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to take the beam solo, the PVC beam, and we've created some mounting blocks that go right into the siding here and here, and that's just screwed right in there. There's barely any weight on it. The whole thing weighs about 250 pounds maybe. All the weight is out here. There's almost no weight at the house. We have 2 columns here carrying that load, and back here we are also going to have another column and another column, but we're going to wait to put those in for now. The whole point of this is to obscure this door and to obscure some of the stuff that's going on. And so it obviously does that. The other column will go here and kind of hide this door because this door is off-centered. So once we have that screwed up to the house, check it for level, make sure our door clears because our clearance is very tight. It does in fact clear, so that's good. And then we can go about getting our columns fit, which is very easy to do. These are, I believe they're a fiberglass column. You cut from below so that you can cut, columns have a taper to them. So you cut below the taper where it's straight. So you measure from the ground up. These ones actually, you set a little measuring circle on the ground. You measure from 4 points, and then you can put those 4 points onto the column itself. And then you can stretch either a piece of tape around it or whatever you want to connect those 4 points so that you can then cut that off. We used a diamond blade on a grinder. You could use a diamond blade on a saw, circular saw. You cut it in many different ways. After that's cut, You can grind it smooth if you want to, but there's no need because it's going to be covered on the bottom by the base. Simply fit these two pieces on. That one drops down. This does have a screw ring at the bottom, which keeps it in place. And at the top, there is this little purple block, which you actually can't see, but that gets screwed to this and goes inside of the diameter of the column, the circle of the column, and holds that in place. And we will fasten that further, but there's a lot of work left to do fiddling around here, so we're not going to worry about that yet. Because it's circular, there's all sorts of weird stuff that has to happen. You know, squaring this up, we decided that it should be square to a line parallel to the house, rather than, say, square to the center line of the column. You could do it that way, I guess, but it's a bit weird since everything else is running related to the straight line of the house. So in order to do that, because these are centered on a joist, bring a line down, take the center point of this, which is right here, square a line back. If those two meet, then you're square to the house, so you'll be in good shape. Yeah, that's pretty much it for setting the columns in place. In terms of then fitting the joists, those fit on the ground, and then once we've screwed this thing to the house, they still fit, so that was good. Doesn't always happen. And then there's just a little bit of tweaking that has to happen here and there to get these joints tight. So right at the top here, what I've done is I've just extended sort of there's the 2x10, and it just extends out into a notch over here, so I can get a screw down into this and a screw down into this. And then if you look back here, it actually overhangs and has a little bit of a chamfer. And if you look at this one, you can see I cut this one too long, but I'll have another chance to shorten that up. But, you know, just rather than have an undecorated wild end there, you can see the work we did there with a little light chamfer on those ends. So 2 screws through the top, and you can see here I've gone through and I've string lined this so that it's straight, and then I've taken a wedge and wedged this one over at the top, and then driven a screw through it. So they're all tight at the top. The only thing left to do is to then wedge everything at the bottom, just like that. If I drive that up there, that'll come tight. And then put a single screw, probably from this direction, but all that's gonna happen after paint. So we wanna be nice to our painter. He's nice to us. We wanna be nice to him. It's gonna be physically impossible for him to paint this piece and this piece in their current position. So we're gonna actually take everything down after we have everything nicely fitted and where we want it. We're gonna take all the Douglas fir down, lay those on a sawhorse, and he can paint them there. We'll also be able to get some paint in the joints, in the mortises, which will help those survive a little bit longer. And the other thing that's gonna do for us is, you'll see, you know, in some places you have a little bit of a 16th gap. The gap's gonna be gone when it's painted because the material's actually gonna be larger. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. That's the portico. Super challenging, very fun. When you do something hard and you get it right, it's a good feeling. But I will say this may be the last for a long time of this one, because this took a lot out of me. But hopefully we get to build another one someday.